How big budgets are killing games? Pretty interesting. Let's see what he has to say.
So, what ties all of these games together? Apart from poor
Incompetence
quality
and
and obvious
greed.
financial failure, these games have something else in common, and it's just incredibly big budgets.
That's so crazy. I still to this day cannot believe Concord costed $400 million. That just seemed unreal. I mean, where all the money went? Clearly it didn't pour into the game because the game looked fine. I don't think it looked bad, but definitely doesn't justify a $400 million budget. I mean, where did it all go? Marketing? I don't think so. I don't think they used all of that for marketing because the game lasted literally a week and not a lot of people have heard about it until it was released and everyone kind of clowned on it until the closed beta. Yeah, I mean, this is just weird. Might be some money laundering. Who knows?
But how do these projects, which seemed like an obvious failure at the time of the first teaser,
Bruh.
get the How do these projects, which seem like an obvious failure
What
at the
in God's name is this Concord design?
time of the
Holy... They actually put magnificence into the game.
first teaser get the
no.
green light and hundreds of millions of dollars in budget from publishers? Are the top managers of the largest gaming companies
Is this the
dumber
Saints
than
Row
ordinary
game?
gamers like you and me? And don't real top managers of the
Holy, that look garbage. I've never looked at this game. I heard this game flopped, and it's kind of weird that I haven't checked this game out because I'm a huge Saints Row fan. I used to play like the Saints Row 3, Saints Row 4, and Get Out of Hell DLC. I loved them to death. I even played the other game the same company made before they fell apart. I believe it's called Agents of Mayhem. I actually love this game. A lot of people hated this game, but personally I loved it. Yeah, I never really checked out Saints Row, and man, now I understand why. This looks absolutely garbage. Holy.
largest gaming companies dumber than ordinary gamers like you and me, and don't realize that Saints Row, which looks like a mobile game, or another
Yeah.
live service that does not stand out from hundreds of others, will definitely fail, and it is better not to invest in such games? In general, why have we seen that in recent years, that the bigger the budget of a game, the more likely it is to be shitty? It should be the other way around, right? Well, in fact, this situation is much deeper and more interesting than it might seem at first glance. To begin with, let's recall the classification
it
of
is.
games by their budget. We have AA games, usually developed by studios with 50 or 100 people. These projects have average budgets that very rarely exceed 50 million. Sometimes such games can be quite
Tight
popular
budget.
and even bring in good
50
money.
million.
Kingdom Come Deliverance or DayZ are great examples. Then, there are also indie games. Very small studios work on them, which may even include just one person. Due to limited budgets, indie game developers often have to sell drugs to support their families.
True.
But usually, these games have some artistic value and have some soul and uniqueness compared to everything else in the industry today.
And that's why they're so successful while AAA like budget games just shutting down constantly. At least when you're making an indie game, yes, you're on a tight budget for sure, but you have to compensate for that with skill. And that's why indie games are taking over. And thank God for that, because man, we're so tired of those slops we're getting. We're constantly being fed one after another. So I'm glad indie games are taking over, man. And I'm glad I'm getting a higher budget each time, because now we get Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which is an insanely good game. I still need to play it. My God, I'm dying to play it, but I don't have time, unfortunately. But yeah, this is how we get indie companies or, you know, AA companies just to go into a AAA area. And this is great. This is absolutely fantastic.
But what these classes of games have in common is that they all have budgetary constraints.
They have
all
a
spend a
soul.
lot of money on marketing. Big publishers are reluctant to invest because they think it is risky. Game companies want to be sure that their next game will not only pay off, but will bring in a lot of money.
And that's the problem with today. I'm sorry for pausing all the time, but I have so much to say on this subject. I'll try not to do that more often, but yeah, I mean, exactly. That's the problem, right? Everyone want to go for the sure bet, and that's why you're seeing this trend of big companies constantly chasing what's currently relevant and not trying to develop their own thing. And that's why we're reached a point where the market is just super stale, because everyone is doing the same thing. It started with MOBA games. Everyone started to create a MOBA game, and there was this huge MOBA craze. Every single game fell apart, even Heroes of the Storm that was made by Blizzard. The only game that remained kind of above water is Smite. That is the only game that kind of managed to succeed this area. But other than Smite, no other game I think survived. I can't think of another MOBA at the top of my head. Every single MOBA has died, and everything remained the same, just as it was before. League of Legends and Dota 2 are the single MOBAs that everyone plays. Smite is the only exception, and Smite have a very low population. Like, nobody really plays Smite. It just has a very consistent player base, but it has almost nothing. Yeah, so this is why we have also, everyone was starting to chase the PUBG trend, the Battle Royale. This is why we got Fortnite, we got Apex Legends. Now, these games actually remain sustainable, which is, you know, I'm glad they brought something new to the table, so I can appreciate at least that. But there's so many Battle Royales that just have crashed and burned, like Battle Royale. And so many games, right? You had the high-res game that was also like Paladin's game, but Battle Royale, everything just crashed and burned.
Therefore, they invest in a large-scale game and its marketing campaign. They invest hundreds of millions and allow developers to make such projects for 5 to 7 years.
What the hell
and
is
these
that?
are the games that we call AAA. However, nowadays, they are not even considered the most expensive. Not so long ago, 2 new classes appeared. These are AAA plus games.
No, don't say
Sometimes the budgets of these games are enough to make several Avatar movies. There was also another class, quadruple A games. This class is the newest, but something tells me that we will see a lot more of these games very soon. But right now, these 2 classes are to blame for the fact that the gaming industry looks pretty bad. It is the developers of these games who have to take responsibility for the fact that games in general have degraded, lost their soul and identity.
Well, it's also the higher-ups, but yeah, definitely some incompetence.
Stay hydrated, boys. And I will definitely explain to you in detail why this happened and where these new categories came from, but that will come just a little bit later. Now, we have to go back to the old days, to the end of the noughties, and find the exact moment when publishers started investing really big money in games for some reason. Let's rewind the Let's rewind the clock back 15 years from now. When life was simpler, girls were girls.
The good old
days.
days.
If you had a PSP, you were the coolest kid in school. And if you had a PS Vita,
you're getting bullied.
You would definitely get bullied. But anyways, 2009, the year Uncharted 2: Among Thieves was released. It was a game created by people who really love games. The second Uncharted didn't feel like just a product to fulfill financial plans, but something where developers had the opportunity to realize their creativity and some kind of vision. And they succeeded. A good script, high quality voice actors, very diverse gameplay, cinematic action scenes like the building collapse or the famous train scene were perfectly integrated into the gameplay. And
exactly, games had soul, and this game is such a perfect example for it. I mean, you remember playing those games forever. I still remember playing Far Cry 3 on my cousin's Xbox because my PC couldn't run it at the time. Far Cry 3 was one of the best stories I've ever seen in game history. And if you look at a story now, it's not that it was like so great. I think it was fantastic, but it was just the vibe, right? It was so unique. You had like the mission where you had to burn all those fields. I mean, the classic mission. If you want, you can watch it on YouTube and reminisce about the good old days. It was so good. It was just filled with soul. You felt like you were playing a game. It was fun. Nowadays, everything is just a soulless husk.
From the beginning to the end, the game looked very expensive and large scale. So with all of this, the developers of this game did it for only $20 million.
Crazy. Crazy, yeah.
Right there.
Exactly.
$20 million. Now, that's not even enough to hire Ubisoft psychologists for their developers. It's not much compared to today's huge budgets, but Uncharted 2 has become one of the best and most cinematic experiences in gaming. But how did they manage to realize one of the most complex technical games of the time on such a small budget? In 2009, Naughty Dog was not working under the pressure of an investor's desk, diversity control, and definitely not in the narrative of a marketing trend. Having recently gone through it again, I realized that they wanted to create a game that felt, not just functioned. Feeling is something you can't buy for even $200 million, and we can see it now. The modern industry is pumped with money, like a gym bro with a broken heart. He looks cool on the outside, but hollow on the inside.
Nice
Although
example.
I wouldn't really say that the industry is hollow now, because there can be shit inside, like Suicide Squad with a budget that was 10 times bigger than Uncharted 2. And so you can say like this is inflation and the development time has increased, but not 10 times, dude. Every aspect of Suicide Squad is much worse than the game that came out 13 years ago and was 10 times cheaper. And I can see how I've already bored you with Uncharted 2. But I really want to use this game as a good example of how you can make a very good AAA game with a small budget. And this budget was really small, because even before the release of cool exclusives from Sony for PS3, there were already those in the gaming industry who spent hundreds of millions of dollars on games. In 1997, the first blockbuster or AAA game was released, Final Fantasy VII. It cost about $145 million to develop, which is about $234 million today.
That's crazy.
It was the most expensive game at the time. The developers took such a risky path because they wanted to move to the next level in the industry. The game was cinematized with expensive CGI. It had orchestral music and an innovative mix of gameplay and dynamic cinematography at the time. However, the risk was fully justified. The game became a commercial and cultural phenomenon. Sales exceeded all expectations, totaling more than 12 million copies, and making the game one of the making the game one of the most successful projects in the entertainment industry. It was after this that big companies realized that spending Hollywood budgets on developing bouncing pixels for nerds could be quite profitable. Big publishers like EA, Ubisoft, Activision, and Rockstar Games started creating games with budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars, investing huge amounts into developing, advertising, and fake sales reviews. Popular franchises such as Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, and Assassin's Creed regularly set new standards for financial investments and revenue. During this period, there seemed to be no limit to the growth of costs. AAA was only getting more expensive, but at the same time, it was getting better. So there was nothing to complain about. People knew that if the game had a bigger budget, it would definitely be good, and very often, that was true. But at some point, everything started to change. 2010, ABP,
Oh,
2010,
what a game.
APB was released, something that GTA Online with a budget of over $100 million.
Crazy.
Despite the fact that this project closed after 3 months, APB was a kind of founder of live services in the future, and ironically, this game was the same shit as what they spawned. A bunch of technical bugs, an empty world, and high monetization.
It was so sad. I played this game. It was so sad. Some aspects were nice, but overall, the game was absolutely garbage. Like, holy...
The development studio went bankrupt, and the game was sold to another company for only $1.5 million, with a budget of over 100. Next was Kingdoms of Amalur, a fantasy with a budget of $100 million, with cool writers and ambitions on the level of Skyrim. But
I never heard of that. That's interesting. I never heard about this game.
Up with failed marketing, a little more than 1 million copies sold, and a financial collapse for the developers and large debts. Prototype 2 was a big budget from Activision, but for some reason, it was again a financial failure for a big game, followed by the closure of the studio. And of course...
No, I love the Prototype game. I like to play the first one. Oh god, that saddens me.
The Order 1886. A super picture, cinematic presentation, and it was a pretty good game. At the very least, Sony expected a hit, but also a financial failure. And these are just a few examples of financially failed releases of the first half of the 2010s. But it was at this time that publishers finally realized that big budgets in the AAA prefix did not guarantee success. And when your most expensive games start failing more and more, and the audience is discovering alternative genres, what do big publishers do to mitigate the risks? They make their budgets even bigger. The obsession with huge development costs is starting to infect the industry on a massive scale. And many of the AAA franchises that we're getting are starting to turn into soulless and bloated products created for the widest possible audience. Publishers are now so afraid of losing money that they prefer to produce boring, safe copies instead of giving something really good and new, because it can be risky. It was at this point, when the AAA prefix was already so commonplace for the industry, that the biggest publishers decided to change things up and add the plus symbol. AAA Plus was a completely new category in the gaming industry. The budgets became even bigger, but the quality of these games, for some reason, only decreased. 2016. This is the year when Blizzard gave birth to a fancy, colorful, politically correct demon. The success of Overwatch was undeniable. This game became the first truly successful and large-scale live service project. Regular updates, seasonal events, microtransactions, and monetization.
Yeah, I think most people won't understand how popular early days of Overwatch was. Like that was crazy. Like early days of Overwatch, the game was absolutely crazy. Everyone talked about it. Everybody played it. It was insane. And the monetization at the time was actually really great. In my opinion, you just paid one-time fee and you had a game. The loot boxes in the game, I felt like they were fair, which is kind of a weird thing to say about loot boxes, but I thought they were fair at the time. And yeah, I mean, the game was sensational. It was innovative, it was new, it definitely brought so many good stuff to the table, and that's why it had such a massive success. I mean, Blizzard did really do a good thing with Overwatch.
Overwatch has shown that if a game lives long enough and constantly generates revenue, it does not need to be replaced with a sequel. It was a key moment when live service became a new standard. Immediately the following year, Epic Games released Fortnite Battle Royale. And this moment...
Well, but Fortnite followed PUBG. You need to make sure people know about this. So the thing that was actually Fortnite before it became like a Battle Royale, it was a game, I think it was a zombie survival game. And I wanted to actually play it. I thought the game looked dope. I really liked the game and I liked the idea behind it, that you build the bases with your friends and you like fight zombies. I think that was really cool. And then PUBG came out and Epic came with the Fortnite Battle Royale. And that's what happened. It's a mod. It's a mod over the original. It's not supposed to be like the main event. But it ended up catching on fire and everybody played it. It was the most popular game in the world for some time. So, yeah, that's quite funny.
Can be considered a point
that is actually
of no
funny.
Return. For the first time, a free game was able to outperform most paid AAA games in terms of profitability. Developers began to realize that the game could be turned into a store, and players into customers who needed to be retained as long as possible. And even companies that used to release good story-driven AAA projects that were important for the industry are now starting to realize that if they want to earn more money, they need to make live pipelines. Oh, fuck. Ubisoft and Activision are completely changing their vector. Plot, quality, experiments. All of this has been put on the back burner. In 2018, they actively promoted the game service model in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Although the game remained single player, it has regular updates, an in-game store, and experience boosters for real money. Then we see the failed...
What? You had experience booster for a single player game? Brother, excuse me? That's just odd.
Skull and Bones, which was part of a big strategy to move to service games.
Oh, it's flickering, nice.
And in this case too, a huge budget and years of development did not guarantee a very good result. And the same thing happened with many other AAA Plus releases. It seemed that in the pursuit of profits, publishers lost their understanding of what makes a game interesting. AAA Plus has become...
Well, again, you kind of given Apex as sort of an example here, but Apex is different because Apex is, again, a mod, well, not really a mod, just an offshoot of Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 was an incredible game that was again, a huge amount of money was poured into it, and unfortunately it was a failure. And the developers turned it into Apex. So this is kind of what happened. It's kind of an offshoot of Titanfall. And I'm so glad Apex was successful because I thought Titanfall was a great game. And so is Apex. Like, so was Apex. It's still a great game.
Become a symbol not of innovation, but rather the fear of risk and blind copying of models that seem to work. Despite the technological progress and resources that were invested, it was in the AAA Plus era that we got some of the least inspired games in recent years. It's fair to say that most live services objectively look much cheaper than regular AAA story-driven games, even those that were released much earlier.
Not gonna lie, I kind of like the way Halo looks, man. It looks so gorgeous.
However, at the same time, they have many times larger budgets. In Skull and Bones, for example, we can see outdated gameplay and graphics that don't even reach Black Flag, and it all cost $250 million. But this was far from the most expensive AAA Plus projects. Destiny cost about $500 million, which is $100 million more than Red Dead Redemption 2. Warzone, which is actually just a DLC, costed $250 million. Suicide Quest...
Well, to be fair, I played Destiny for many hours and the game looks amazing. The game is incredible and it ran back in the day on like my older PC, which was trash, and it went buttery smooth. And the game looked amazing. This was super incredible out of the development. Like, the optimization was fantastic. I'm not gonna lie. Like, the game looked incredible and it ran on my shitty old PC. Like, that was crazy. I don't know. I think it was money, at least from my perspective, it was like money well spent. I could have run it, so I was happy.
Cost? Suicide Squad costed $220 million. And this is actually quite a lot, considering that the development of Death Stranding, Horizon Forbidden West, or God of War Ragnarok cost half as much as these cartoonish live services.
Yikes.
But tell me, do these AAA Plus games really look at least half as good as AAA story games? Are licenses for LGBT characters or the development of outdated mechanics that can be found in ready-made presets on the Unreal Engine really expensive? Where do these costs come from? Well, it doesn't actually take a lot of money to create outdated graphics, but to turn it into a product that will bring in a lot of money on a consistent basis, you need to spend a lot of extra shit. The fact is that a story-driven AAA game is, by its very nature, a complete product. The development has a clear end goal: to create a complete, composed experience regardless of whether the player plays the game once or 10 times. Investments are made in directing, animation, recording actors, cinematography, and the author's vision. But live services do not have such a goal. They exist in a permanent state of not yet. This gives rise to a different economic model. Resources are redistributed not to the quality of the core, but to the amount of peripheral content that can be dosed out monthly. The reason for the high cost of AAA Plus games is not technology or artistic complexity, but an attempt to turn the game into an ecosystem. And this ecosystem needs constant maintenance, marketing, campaigns, services, regular updates to monetization model, A/B testing in the store, new partnerships, and a bunch of crap that has no artistic value. In short, everything that makes today's most expensive games so expensive is also what makes them so mediocre and empty. That's why projects with bigger budgets often look technically poorer, visually simpler, and structurally more monotonous than less expensive but meaningful story-driven games. That is as paradoxical as it may sound, but nowadays, the bigger the budget of a game, the more chances it has to be shitty.
True. Actually right. Actually right. I understand what he said there towards the end. So you actually take a budget that was meant to create a complete game and you kind of stretch it out to create a live service game. And I think that's absolutely true. Now, this is unfortunate, but there's also downsides to this. So I believe when you make a complete package, you will succeed. If your game is good, people will buy it. Right now, we're living in the area where publicity is really easy to get, sorry. It's not really that difficult as it used to be. Now people can get publicity. You saw like Vampire Survivors, right? This game just exploded. Same thing with Among Us. Like this game went absolutely wild. It was alive for 2 years before it actually popped the hell off. So you can get publicity today. It's not that difficult like it used to be. But even if you want to go with like a big publisher and stuff, I believe you should still invest so much into single player games because I believe a good story will captivate people and will make them buy your product. Now, if it will make the same amount of money as a good live service game would have made, no. Like 100% no. Live service games are always going to be more profitable because they have longevity, for sure. But I believe that single player game with good story and a good gameplay will always sell well, right? It's like a safer bet even, rather than live service game that absolutely flops. We've seen those so many times, and you rarely see a single player game that crashes and burns. Most people just want to play single player games. So yeah, that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but hey, that's what I'm feeling. I've seen so many live service games just crashing. Almost never heard about a single player game that crashes, but hey, maybe it's my perspective. So make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And this video was great. Gonna leave a link in the description so you guys can watch it for yourself and give it a like. And yeah, that's all for now. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.